November 30th, 1994. Quad Recording Studios, Times Square, New York City. A man picks up the phone. He calls his guy, a convicted killer named Dexter Isaac. The instructions are simple. Go to Quad Studios, find Tupac, rob him, take everything, and there is one ring, one specific ring, bring that back to me. Isaac does not have a choice. When this man gives an order, you follow it. No questions, no hesitation. Isaac rounds up his crew. They walk into the lobby of Quad Recording Studios. They wait. Tupac arrives. He is there to record a verse. He walks through the lobby toward the elevator. Isaac and his crew step out with guns drawn. They shoot Tupac 5 times. They rip the jewelry off his body. Chains, rings, a gold medallion worth $40,000. Tupac does not die. He crawls into the elevator, bleeding from 5 gunshot wounds. He rides the elevator up to the recording studio where Biggie, Puffy, and a room full of people are waiting. He walks in, covered in blood. And the man who ordered it? The man who made the phone call? The man who wanted that ring? He managed some of the biggest names in music. The Game, Akon, Brandy, Mike Tyson. The New York Times called him a prince at the royal court. But Tupac was not the only one. Years later, this same man sent shooters with silencers to a 50 Cent music video set. The guns jammed. 50 Cent survived by luck. Then, this man ordered the murder of one of 50 Cent's closest associates, 2 weeks after the man walked out of prison. Then he had Tony Yayo's Bentley shot up in broad daylight. Tupac, 50 Cent, G-Unit, all of them targeted by the same man. A man who ran a $100 million empire, half music and half cocaine. He shipped kilos across America in music road cases smeared with mustard. James Rosemond was born on February 5, 1965, in Harlem. His parents, Haitian immigrants who came to New York in the 1960s, divorced when he was young. His mother raised 5 children alone in an apartment complex called Vanderveer Gardens in Flatbush, Brooklyn. Flatbush in the 1970s was a different world. Haitian families and Caribbean culture, but also corners, hustlers, and a pipeline from the streets to Rikers Island that swallowed boys whole. By 16, Rosemond was one of those boys. He was arrested for stealing a bike. He was sent to Rikers Island, C-74, the juvenile detention center. That is where he met the man who would define the next 40 years of his life. Not a mentor, not a teacher, a stick-up kid from Fort Greene, Brooklyn. His name was Kelvin Martin, street name 50 Cent. The real 50 Cent. Not the rapper, the original. A stick-up artist who terrorized Brooklyn in the 1980s, robbing dealers, robbing hustlers, robbing anyone with something worth taking. He was murdered in 1987 at 21 years old. Rosemond and Martin became close at Rikers. When Rosemond came out, he carried 2 things with him: a network of street connections and an understanding that the line between entertainment and crime was thinner than anyone realized. He was about to walk that line better than anyone in history. Until it snapped. In the early 1990s, James Rosemond made a decision that separated him from every other hustler in Brooklyn. He went legitimate, or at least he made it look legitimate. In 1992, he co-founded a music conference called How Can I Be Down, a networking event for new talent, rising executives, and industry players. It became one of the most important gatherings in hip-hop. By 1993, he was behind Salt and Peppa's hit single Shoop, one of the biggest rap songs of the year. By 1996, he founded his own management company. It was first called Henchmen, then rebranded as Czar Entertainment. Czar became a powerhouse. The roster read like a who's who of the music industry. The Game, Sean Kingston, Brandy, Gucci Mane, Akon, Salt and Peppa. And it wasn't just music. In 2002, Rosemond negotiated the Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson heavyweight championship fight. He brokered a deal that had never been done before. After 1 million pay-per-view buys, the boxers would split the purse 50-50 with Showtime and HBO. A kid from Vanderveer Gardens was now sitting across the table from HBO executives, negotiating $100 million boxing deals. The New York Times profiled him. They called him a prince at the royal court, whose ties to rap music's biggest stars were known far and wide. A prince. But every prince has a kingdom, and Jimmy Henchman's kingdom wasn't built on music royalties. Let's go back to that night. November 30th, 1994. Tupac was in New York to record a guest verse. He got a page from a man he knew as Booker. Booker told him there was a session at Quad Recording Studios in Times Square. A rapper named Little Sean needed a verse. Good money, easy work. Tupac agreed. He drove to the studio with his crew, including his road manager, Stretch Walker. What Tupac did not know was that Booker was James Rosemond, and Rosemond had made another call that night to Dexter Isaac. Isaac was a convicted killer, an enforcer, the kind of man you called when you needed something done and did not care how it happened. Rosemond's instructions were, go to Quad Studios, rob Tupac, take his jewelry, and bring back one specific ring. He paid Isaac $2,500 for the job, plus whatever jewelry he could keep except the ring. Isaac and his crew were waiting in the lobby when Tupac walked in. They let him get to the elevator, then they drew. 5 shots. Tupac was hit in the head, hand, leg, and groin. Jewelry was stripped from his body, $40,000 gone. Tupac did not die. He grabbed a gun, even after being shot 5 times, and stumbled into the elevator. He rode it up and walked into the studio, dripping blood. Biggie was there. Puffy was there. The whole room froze. And Tupac, sitting in a chair and bleeding from his head, looked around the room and decided that the people upstairs had set him up. That moment, that decision, right or wrong, ignited the East Coast versus West Coast war. The war that would kill Tupac 2 years later. The war that would kill Biggie 6 months after that. And it all started because Jimmy Henchman wanted a ring. Years later, Tupac named him. On the track Against All Odds, released after Tupac's death on the album The Don Killuminati, Tupac rapped directly at Rosemond. Tupac said, Jimmy Henchman set me up, wet me up, stuck me up, but you never shut me up. Tupac knew exactly who ordered it. He set it on wax, and then he died before anyone could do anything about it. For 17 years, the Quad Studios shooting remained officially unsolved. Then on June 16, 2011, Tupac's birthday, Dexter Isaac broke his silence. Isaac was serving a life sentence for an unrelated murder. He had nothing to lose. He released a public statement. In 1994, James Rosemond hired me to rob Tupac at the Quad Studio. He gave me $2,500 plus all the jewelry I took, except for one ring, which he wanted for himself. The confession was specific, detailed, and named names, and it matched everything Tupac had said on Against All Odds 15 years earlier. But here is the twist that makes this story even more insane. After Isaac's public confession, Rosemond himself admitted his involvement. During a 2011 Queen for a Day proffer session, a legal negotiation where statements are protected from prosecution, Rosemond came clean. Court documents reference the defendant's own admission about that particular shooting. He confessed because he was trying to cut a deal on a different case, a massive cocaine trafficking charge. He was offering up the Tupac shooting as a bargaining chip. But it did not matter. The statute of limitations had expired. The Quad Studios attack was classified as a robbery, not attempted murder. The clock had run out years ago. Jimmy Henchman confessed to ordering the shooting of Tupac and can never be prosecuted for it. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. He walks away from the most infamous shooting in hip-hop history, legally untouchable. February 2005, HOT 97 radio station in New York. Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, the rapper and not the original Stick-Up Kid, is live on air. He insults the game, his own G-Unit group member. He kicks the game out of G-Unit. Live, on the radio, in front of millions of listeners. The game's manager is Jimmy Henchman. Rosemond heard it happen in real time. He immediately sent the game and an associate named Mohammed Stewart to the Hot 97 building to confront 50 Cent. A shootout erupted outside the studio. One of the game's friends was shot. Stewart was paid $2,000 by Rosemond afterward. This was the beginning of a war that would consume hip-hop for years. Czar Entertainment versus Violator Records, Jimmy Henchman versus 50 Cent. Their offices were literally across the street from each other in Manhattan. The violence escalated beyond anything the music industry had seen. As early as 2002, Rosemond had paid an associate half a kilo of cocaine to shoot at the awning of Violator's office building. In 2003, Rosemond himself shot a parked car outside their office. Shootings, Molotov cocktails, attempted arson. But the moment that changed everything, the moment that would eventually put Rosemond in prison for the rest of his life, happened in 2007. Rosemond's son, 14-year-old James Jr., was walking to his father's Manhattan office. He was wearing a Czar Entertainment t-shirt. A group of men surrounded the boy, including G-Unit member Tony Yayo and an associate named Lodi Mack Fletcher. They slapped the child across the face. 4 grown men, one 14-year-old boy who looked 12. He was wearing his father's company shirt. When Jimmy Henchman found out what happened to his son, something inside him broke, and the retaliation was immediate. First, he ordered his people to shoot up Tony Yayo's Bentley in broad daylight. The car that Yayo drove around New York like he was untouchable was riddled with bullets. Then, he sent shooters with silencers to the set of 50 Cent and Akon's music video, I'll Still Kill. Multiple cars followed 50 Cent's convoy. The hitmen had silenced weapons. The plan was to open fire on 50 Cent and the key members of G-Unit while they were filming, but something went wrong. According to Tony Yayo, who confirmed this on Vlad TV years later, one of the guns went off accidentally inside the car. The weapon jammed. The shooters panicked. They backed out. 50 Cent never knew how close he came to dying that day. A jammed gun. That's the only reason he's alive. Yayo said later that they had God on their side. They had silencers. Nobody saw them, but he guessed they did not know how to handle the weapon. The gun went off in the car, jammed, and they backed out of what they wanted to do. But Henchman was not done. The men who slapped his son were still breathing, and one of them, Lodi Mack, was about to get out of prison. Lodi Mack was charged with endangering the welfare of a child. He pled guilty and got 9 months, which ran alongside a narcotics charge he was already serving. While Lodi Mack sat in prison at Mohawk Correctional Facility in upstate New York, he bragged about slapping Jimmy Henchman's son loudly to anyone who would listen. One of the men listening was Brian McLeod. McLeod was a Rosemond associate, but Lodi Mack did not know that. McLeod kept his connection to Henchman a secret. He listened. He waited. He remembered. When McLeod was released, Rosemond gave him $5,000 for not cooperating with law enforcement during his own case. Then they met in Central Park. McLeod told Rosemond that he had a line on the man who slapped his son. Rosemond gave the order. McLeod called Lodi Mack's lawyer and got Fletcher's phone number. He introduced himself as Slim, a friend of a friend. He pretended to want to help Lodi Mack get on his feet after prison. He offered financial assistance and gave him a burner phone number. All of it was a setup. McLeod was building trust so he could lure Fletcher to a location where he could be killed. On September 27, 2009, 2 weeks after Lodi Mack was released from prison, McLeod shot Lowell Lodi Mack Fletcher 5 times, in the back and in the arms, in the Bronx. Fletcher died on the street. Rosemond paid for the murder with 1 kilogram of cocaine, worth approximately $30,000. 2 shooters testified that they killed Fletcher for the coke, with 2 of Rosemond's associates watching to confirm the job was done. A man slapped a 14-year-old boy. 2 years later, that man was dead. While Jimmy Henchman was managing platinum artists and negotiating boxing deals, he was simultaneously running one of the most creative drug trafficking operations the DEA had ever seen. The operation worked like this. Cocaine was purchased in Los Angeles, kilos of it. Then it was packed into music equipment road cases, the same heavy-duty cases that touring bands use to transport amplifiers, speakers, and instruments across the country. Those road cases were shipped via FedEx and UPS from Los Angeles to recording studios in New York City. Nobody questions road cases going to a recording studio. It is the most normal delivery in the world. Once the cocaine arrived, Rosemond's crew would unpack it, distribute it across the New York metropolitan area, and collect the cash. Then they would pack the cash back into the same road cases and ship them back to Los Angeles via FedEx, via UPS, round trip. And to make sure drug detection dogs could not sniff out the shipments, they sealed the packages and covered them in mustard. Mustard, hundreds of kilograms of cocaine moving back and forth across America in music equipment, covered in French's mustard, delivered by FedEx. The operation generated tens of millions of dollars. Prosecutors called it a multi-million-dollar transnational cocaine-selling organization. Jimmy Henchman was running 2 empires out of the same office. One managed rappers, the other moved kilos. And the road cases that carried the game's equipment to concerts were the same road cases that carried cocaine to New York. In June 2010, the feds finally moved. A federal arrest warrant was issued for James Rosemond. Cocaine trafficking, money laundering, witness tampering, the full weight of the federal government. Rosemond ran. U.S. Marshals tracked him to Park Avenue in Manhattan. They spotted him on the street. Rosemond saw them, and he took off running, sprinting up Park Avenue in broad daylight with federal marshals chasing him on foot. When they caught him, he was carrying a fake ID and a passport application under a fake name. He was about to fly to the Bahamas that day. If the marshals had been 10 minutes later, Jimmy Henchman would have been gone. June 5, 2012, Federal District Court in Brooklyn. James Rosemond was convicted of drug trafficking, obstruction of justice, firearms violations, and running a continuing criminal enterprise, the Kingpin statute. United States Attorney Loretta Lynch, who would later become the Attorney General of the United States, stood at the podium and delivered the line that defined Jimmy Henchman's entire life. His carefully crafted image as a music mogul was in reality a cover for the real Jimmy Rosemond, a thug in a suit. Presiding Judge John Gleason sentenced him to life in prison. He then said something that judges almost never say. "I would have sentenced him to life even if it were not legally required." His crimes were astonishing in their breadth, duration, and intensity. Life for the drug operation, but the government was not done. The murder for hire case, Lodi Mack Fletcher went to trial 4 times. First trial, mistrial, hung jury. Second trial, convicted and overturned on appeal. Third trial, convicted and overturned again. Fourth trial, convicted, life plus 30 years. This time it stuck. November 8, 2018. 6 life sentences total. James Jimmy Henchman, Rosemond, was assigned Bureau of Prisons number 179303054 and sent to USP Pollock, a high-security federal penitentiary in Louisiana. He will die there. Here is what stays with you about Jimmy Henchman. He sat in the same rooms as the biggest names in entertainment. He shook hands with HBO executives. He negotiated championship boxing matches. He managed artists whose music played in every car, every club, every speaker in America. Salt and Pepper, Brandy, Akon. The Game, Sean Kingston, Gucci Mane, Mike Tyson. All of them at some point trusted Jimmy Henchman with their careers. And the entire time, he was shipping cocaine in road cases covered in mustard, ordering hits, running an operation that spanned 2 coasts. Tupac knew. He said it on a track before he died. Jimmy Henchman set me up, wet me up, stuck me up. 50 Cent knew. His affiliate was murdered 2 weeks after his prison release because someone slapped Henchman's son. The judge knew. A thug in a suit. Loretta Lynch, the future Attorney General, knew. A cover for the real Jimmy Rosemond. Everybody knew, and nobody stopped it. For 20 years. Because the suit was good. The smile was good. The handshake was good. The roster was real. The boxing deals were real. The music conference was real. But underneath all of it, underneath the Salt and Pepper records and the Tyson fights and the platinum plaques, was a man who ordered the shooting of Tupac for a ring, who had a man killed because someone slapped his son, who shipped cocaine in speaker cases covered in mustard. 6 life sentences, USP Pollock, Bureau of Prisons, number 179303054. The Prince of the Royal Court, dying in a cage in Louisiana, and Tupac from beyond the grave had the last word. Set me up, wet me up, stuck me up. But you never shut me up. He never did.